The moment Vernon's shout pierced the air, the world inside the Dupree estate fractured. Crystal chandeliers trembled as screams collided with the deafening beat of terror, guests tripped over each other, stumbling into walls and furniture, their laughter replaced by raw, primal panic. Somewhere beneath the polished floorboards, a bomb ticked silently, waiting to turn elegance into carnage. And in the chaos, Smitty vanished like smoke, leaving behind a trail of calculated destruction and unanswered questions. Every glance was suspect, every step a gamble with death, and every heartbeat a countdown toward disaster. Trust shattered in an instant, and the facade of family, loyalty, and safety crumbled into dust before anyone could even comprehend the magnitude of betrayal unfolding around them. A heavy tension lingered over the Dupree estate, the kind that pressed down on the chest, leaving every breath labored and every heartbeat echoing like a drum in a silent chamber. The party had been in full swing, guests clad in elegance, laughter mingling with the clinking of glasses, all eyes ostensibly fixed on Martin and Peaches, the centerpieces of attention, their lives a fragile theater of secrets and ambition. But beneath the polished veneer, beneath the glimmering chandeliers and the mirrored walls reflecting false smiles, an unseen threat lay dormant. Vernon was the first to notice it, his instincts prickling with a chill that crawled up his spine. A subtle vibration beneath his feet, a whisper of movement in the floorboards, enough to alert him that catastrophe had been meticulously hidden in plain sight. Before anyone else could react, he shouted, the sound cutting through the laughter and conversation like a gunshot. Panic erupted instantaneously. Guests scrambled, stumbling over heels and polished shoes, shrieking as if the floor itself might swallow them whole. Vernon's heart thudded violently against his ribs, a mix of fear and righteous anger propelling him forward as he herded the chaos-stricken crowd toward the exits. And in that exact moment of orchestrated terror, Smitty vanished, slipping into the shadows as though he had been waiting for the chaos to grant him cover. Only subtle clues, a disturbed rug, a slight drag of a shoe, hinted at his calculated departure. Questions surged through the air, heavy and accusatory. Who had planted the bomb beneath the banquet hall? Who among them had harbored enough malice or cunning to risk everyone's lives for a personal endgame? Suspicion was contagious. It darted from face to face, a silent predator testing allegiances, gnawing at the bonds that had long held the family and their associates together. Vernon, his chest tight with tension, felt the weight of responsibility pressing down. Any failure now would be unforgivable, yet confronting the perpetrator meant confronting the ugly truth of betrayal within walls that were supposed to symbolize security and power. Meanwhile, Martin and Peaches, exhausted from prior conflicts, were cornered emotionally as well as physically. Martin's anger was raw, tinged with helplessness and the bitter taste of guilt. Every instinct screamed at him to control the uncontrollable, yet the situation mocked his authority. Peaches, buried under layers of shock and indignation, felt the sting of betrayal sharper than ever. Each glance she cast around the room, each nervous tick of a guest's hand, seemed like confirmation that trust was a luxury she could no longer afford. Survival instincts battled with responsibility to family and reputation, creating a pressure cooker of emotion that made even rational thought a dangerous endeavor. Smitty, from the shadows outside the house, observed the turmoil like a predator savoring a cornered prey. Every movement inside the estate was a piece of his unfolding plan, every scream, every stumble feeding into his meticulous calculations. His smile was a cold slash in the darkness. He understood that in moments of extreme fear, human judgment falters, revealing weaknesses he could exploit. He needed only the smallest misstep, the tiniest lapse in vigilance, to transform chaos into power, to turn a frantic scramble for survival into a stage upon which he alone dictated the outcome. The guests' panic became a cacophony. The sound of shattering glass, the squeal of shoes on marble, the frantic voice of an injured server crying out, blended into a dissonant symphony that pressed on the nerves of anyone who heard it. In these moments, fear mutated into anger, anger twisted into suspicion, and suspicion inevitably bled into betrayal. Every action, every decision, no matter how small, could tip the delicate balance between life and death, loyalty and ruin. Peach's mind raced with every flicker of recognition, every tiny detail she had previously dismissed now glaringly obvious. Memories of half-trusted allies, overlooked warnings, subtle manipulations, all of it swelled into a tidal wave of anger and dread. She scanned the faces around her, desperate to distinguish friend from foe, yet found only veiled intentions and quiet deceit. The realization that danger came not just from the bomb but from within their own circle tightened the grip of fear on her chest, transforming anxiety into a fiery determination laced with suspicion. Martin's fury, tempered by fear, became a volatile force. Each attempt to assert control only deepened the chaos, exposing cracks in his authority and feeding the unpredictable outcomes of human panic. Decisions had to be made in seconds: who to help first, which path to safety, whose lives could be risked in the scramble. The weight of consequence was tangible, pressing into every nerve, every thought, demanding a response that balanced the heart, the mind, and the instinct to survive. Vernon, still at the eye of the storm, faced his own internal battleground. The man who prided himself on vigilance and preparedness now confronted the inadequacy of foresight. The possibility that the saboteur could be someone he knew, someone he had trusted implicitly, gnawed at him relentlessly. His anger, sharp and consuming, became intertwined with fear and resolve, creating a tension that threatened to fracture his composure. Outside, Smitty's mind moved like a chess grandmaster several steps ahead, anticipating reactions, calculating fear as a tangible currency to manipulate. He had planted more than just explosives, he had seeded doubt, mistrust, and paranoia, ensuring that even if the physical threat was neutralized, the psychological fallout would continue to serve his hidden motives. Every decision he had made, every movement he had executed, pointed to one inescapable truth: chaos was his ally, and human vulnerability was his weapon. Even the building itself seemed to conspire with the turmoil. The grand hall, once a symbol of opulence and security, now echoed with terror. Reflections of frantic faces and polished surfaces multiplied the panic, every mirror and window a reminder that no one could truly hide from what was unfolding. The sense of impending doom was not just imagined, it was woven into the fabric of the space, infiltrating every corner and every mind. The tension between survival and loyalty, between fear and control, reached a fever pitch. Decisions had to be made, alliances tested, and truths confronted under the most extreme pressure. Every second carried the potential for catastrophe, and yet, it was in these crucibles of danger that the rawest aspects of character were revealed. Fear stripped away pretenses, revealing anger, selfishness, courage, and betrayal in equal measure. The room that had once celebrated life was now an arena of human vulnerability and primal instinct, each heartbeat a countdown to either salvation or destruction. The smoke had barely begun to clear when the last echoes of screams faded into a tense, suffocating silence. The grand hall, once a symbol of wealth and control, was now a ruin of splintered wood, shattered glass, and the acrid scent of burned fabric. Guests huddled in clusters, faces pale and eyes wide, trembling with the kind of fear that lingered in the bones long after the immediate danger had passed. Vernon's hands were shaking as he counted heads, each missing figure twisting the knot of anxiety tighter in his chest. And then it hit him: Smitty was gone, vanished into the night while the family scrambled for survival, leaving a void filled with suspicion, betrayal, and unanswered questions. Martin's chest heaved as he surveyed the devastation, fury and helplessness warring in equal measure. Every plan he had laid, every attempt to control the chaos, had been rendered useless by one person's cunning and malice. The anger that coursed through him was sharpened by fear, by the knowledge that someone had not only threatened their lives but had toyed with their trust, exploiting their vulnerabilities to achieve a hidden end. He glanced at Peaches, whose own face was a storm of disbelief, grief, and smoldering rage. She had trusted people who had betrayed her, relied on instincts that now seemed to have been manipulated from the shadows. Every memory of loyalty and care twisted into a bitter reminder of fragility, every choice now tinged with the possibility of treachery. The family's inner circle, once a tightly knit web of alliances and unspoken understandings, was shredded. Whispers filled the corridors, accusations, half-truths, conjectures that spiraled into paranoia. Who had orchestrated this? How deep did the betrayal run? Every glance between the surviving guests became a trial, every interaction a silent interrogation. Trust had become a dangerous luxury, and fear was the only currency that remained universal and unavoidable. Outside, Smitty moved through the night with a predator's precision. The chaos he had sown inside the Dupree estate was only the beginning. The real game, the one played in the shadows of doubt and human vulnerability, had only just begun. He thrived on the cracks in human nature, the fear, the anger, the self-interest, that others refused to see until it was too late. Every misstep, every hasty decision by Martin, Peaches, or Vernon was another piece in his meticulously calculated puzzle. He was no longer just a fugitive, he was a conductor of turmoil, manipulating the emotional and moral vulnerabilities of everyone he had left behind. Back in the hall, the survivors were left to confront the aftermath. Broken furniture, scorched floorboards, and the lingering stench of smoke mirrored the internal ruin in each person's heart. Peaches clenched her fists, nails digging into palms, struggling to contain the whirlwind of fury, fear, and determination that threatened to consume her. Martin's gaze lingered on every shadow, every movement, as though expecting the very walls to betray them next. Vernon's mind raced with contingency plans that felt meaningless in the wake of such deliberate chaos. Each of them understood a painful truth: the physical danger might have passed, but the psychological battlefield was far from over. Smitty had not merely escaped, he had planted seeds of distrust and resentment that would fester, corrode, and erupt in ways no one could predict. The night stretched on, heavy and unrelenting, leaving in its wake not relief, but an acute awareness of vulnerability. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum, counting down to the next act of treachery, the next manipulation, the next explosion, literal or metaphorical, that could shatter the fragile equilibrium they clung to. In the silence, Peaches, Martin, and Vernon understood that survival was no longer just about escaping the bomb, it was about navigating a landscape of deceit, anger, and ambition where the real danger was not the explosives that had almost claimed their lives, but the hidden hand that would always be one step ahead, shaping their fears, dictating their choices, and exploiting every crack in their humanity.